In this WrestleTalk news, WWE announces a Triple H address. Is he going to update us on his WWE future? Free agents rejecting WWE and a Cody Rhodes creative update, plus loads more, so subscribe and enable notifications to Always On for daily wrestling news videos.
Support WrestleTalk!
Turns out the WWE are not adverse to pinching from the AEW playbook, as they've really taken to announcing an announcement. If they get really jazzed about Winnipeg next, then you know the takeover is truly complete. Now, the Fed said on Twitter that creative head honcho Triple H would be making an appearance on Smackdown tonight to address the WWE universe. Now, I know what you're thinking. Didn't he just do that on Raw? He sure did. And didn't Vince end up sitting in his chair once he'd left Gorilla and then just took over the whole show? It sounds like that's what happened. Yeah, so what could Trips possibly be saying tonight? Well, many are speculating it could just be another opportunity to assure fans that nothing in WWE is changing despite the Endeavor deal and the merging of WWE and UFC into one brand new company. But this also comes after a week in which we were promised nothing was changing on Raw, while meanwhile backstage Vince McMahon had reportedly started running the show again, and it became a whole mess of last-minute changes, which then led to #FireVince essentially trending all week online. So will this new appearance be even more reassurance that nothing we've come to enjoy in the 8 months since Vince's absence will be changing, or will it just be two fingers at us? Nothing has changed. Just you like this, you love this, you love it! Or will it, as some speculation suggests, be Triple H addressing his own WWE future, be that, hey guys, I'm here to stay, I'm in charge, or I'm getting out while the getting is good. Because the getting is going to be coming soon, at least according to Endeavor CEO Mark Shapiro, by which I mean, go and get your things, you've been fired, because the company is gearing up for some releases, most likely. Now, Shapiro was speaking with Puck and noted that the company had bid to acquire WWE 3 weeks ago, and until Saturday, I didn't even know we had this deal. So while the takeover was pretty much a surprise to everyone, what comes next won't be to those who know a thing or two about how businesses work. Because Shapiro went on to say that anything from HR to finance to legal to communications production to distribution and marketing, across every area, you're going to find cost synergies. You're going to integrate and ultimately highlight and appoint the best and brightest teams, which is a very fancy way of saying that the company will likely be looking to make a number of layoffs as they merge independent teams from the UFC and WWE into one cohesive company, providing that delicious cost synergy kind of thing that gets Vince McMahon all hot under the moustache. While this doesn't seem to suggest that talent are for the chop, it remains to be seen if higher-ups in the new company do look to the roster for savings opportunities, or whether under this new regime and Vince reportedly being back, more people ask for their release like the grizzled young vets did just this week, whose status, according to Dave Meltzer, is now up in the air. Because it's not just fans bummed out about Vince being back, because backstage the atmosphere has reportedly taken a monster nosedive, with many worried that things have immediately gone back to the bad old ways under Gomez Adams. One thing cited as an indicator of this was the Brock Lesnar Cody Rhodes angle from Raw this week, though according to Fightful Select, that was not a last-minute Vince change and was set in stone well before this week, with Brock knowing the plan nearly a month ahead of time. Which means that Lesnar was likely working when he said goodbye to people backstage last month, as if he was leaving the company properly, and then when he openly contemplated retirement in pre-WrestleMania interviews. So there's that. It's not good either way, is it? It's not good either way. Before we crack on with the rest of the episode, we just need to thank Thomas the Prize Hooker Solazano and the Final Judgment Tasteless Nobody for their support on Patreon. Now, Wednesday's AEW Dynamite was a real barn burner, wasn't it? Not only did Tony Khan's latest major announcement actually prove to be a major one for once, especially for me, but we also saw two rather prevalent wrestling news stories put to bed once and for all. While we get to the other one in a second, the first major announcement answered on Dynamite was which company was Switchblade Jay White going to choose to go with, WWE or AEW. Now, of course, he went for AEW, showing up and attacking Ricky Starks and adding some well-needed development on the Starks versus Bullet Club storyline they are attempting to tell. While White's decision to go with AEW instead of WWE looks rather shrewd considering all the absolute chaos in WWE this week, it turns out his decision was not actually a reactionary one. Because according to Fightful Select, White's future was decided well ahead of WrestleMania weekend, with WWE aware by then that he would not be signing with the company. Now, Fightful notes that while there was contact between White and WWE, specifically from both Triple H and William Regal, higher-ups told Fightful that WWE failed to communicate properly along the process, perhaps playing a part in White's decision. Despite this, tentative creative plans were being drawn up for White in WWE, and some higher-ups did still believe that he would land his signature as of last week. However, Fightful does note that Vince's return could have played a part in WWE not pursuing White so adamantly, adding that the fact that WWE hasn't made any significant main roster hires since Vince McMahon returned, another hint at these budget cuts, these cost synergies. Yeah. As for White's AEW deal, Fightful notes that the former IWGP Heavyweight Champion has signed a multi-year deal with the company. So yeah, story's over. No more Jay White WWE fantasy booking. But what about the other big 2023 news story that got a definitive answer on Wednesday, that being FTR's decision to stay with All Elite Wrestling rather than go back to WWE? Again, shrewd in hindsight. Yes, with their tag title victory over the Guns on Dynamite, FTR's future is sealed. No more cryptic posts and podcast comments then, Dax. You hear me? Because I won't believe them. I won't take the bait anymore. I'll probably take the bait. And as for why Dax and Cash chose to stick with WWE, we now have our answer too, as Dax would post to social media, revealing the decision was based on personal reasons. In response to a Twitter user who stated that FTR staying with AEW was dependent on them winning the AEW tag titles, Dax would respond, "Give us the belts or we're going back to WWE." Definitely not. That AEW schedule keeps me away from my wife and daughter too much, and AEW will allow us to give back to wrestling. But it wasn't just fans responding to FTR's win, as the group's notable BFF CM Punk would also drop an Instagram story with the closing scene of Dynamite between FTR and Mark Briscoe. So he's clearly a proud old dad now. Can we do the FTR and Punk versus the Elite Trios thing? Come on. The story, it builds itself. You did it. While FTR and Jay White's futures have been confirmed to be with AEW, what about another prevalent name in the old rumour mill, that of Kota Ibushi? While Ibushi is known to be a hard man to tie down, he has spoken positively about AEW and WWE since his exit from New Japan at the start of the year, seemingly leaving his options open, as he likes to do. However, now we may have a clearer indicator of where Ibushi may end up next, as speaking to Dark Puroresu Flosion, Ibushi would state how he feels more at home at AEW, even more so than in Japan. He said, "I think I'm more suited to AEW than Japan. I already thought so during All In. I have many friends. They are even the best tag partners." While Ibushi could show up in AEW at any moment with major events such as Forbidden Door 2 and of course the return of All In, an event originally headlined by Ibushi, but the thing is, AEW might hold off until then. Either way, Ibushi clearly thinks AEW is pretty neat, so there you go, Tony. Get the old checkbook out, my son, and send one to me while you're doing it. Okay, back to the absolute mess that is WWE now, and this Friday Smackdown is highly anticipated, not so much because we think it's going to be good, not after that Raw, but because it should give us a much clearer answer of what is going on in WWE. Who's running the show? Because of course we will have the aforementioned Triple H WWE Universe address, which will either give us a farewell, I'm giving this back over to Vince now, and then we're going to have the product itself and the clear indicators that distinguish it between a Vince show and a Trip show, like local medical facility or hospital, Omos or Johnny Gargano, promos or, you know, wrestling, things making sense, them not making sense. While some segments and matches have been announced, such as Jey Uso versus Sami Zayn, Rey Mysterio and Escobar versus Dom and Priest, and Imperium versus the Brawling Brutes, one massive name looks set to be already skipping out on the show, and I am of course alluding to the Tribal Chief, Roman Reigns. Because according to WRKD Wrestling, who specifies that things in WWE are volatile and can change on a whim, Reigns is not set to appear on SmackDown, instead seeing a segment between Jey Uso and Paul Heyman, presumably furthering that narrative we saw on Raw. So yeah, I guess that kind of means no Roman for a while now. Maybe with Cody now facing a Brock problem, it's hard to see who steps up, with an eventual rematch between Rhodes and Roman likely not coming until Brock and Cody's program wraps up at some point. But you know what, WWE? Just to ensure that you don't forget about Cody, how about you take a look at those merch sales from WrestleMania weekend, which were recently revealed by Fightful Select. And oh, what's that? The top seller was whomst? Cody Rhodes? That's strange. Sounds like you got a world champion on your hands there. I'm not bitter. I'm not. And while WWE has been in hot water with its fan base ever since last Sunday night at WrestleMania, it looks like they may have gotten themselves into a much greater problem last weekend. During Dominic Mysterio's WrestleMania entrance, which was of course prison-themed because he's an ex-con dom. He's an ex-con dom. Various prison imagery was shown. However, it seems that amongst the footage chosen was actually some footage of Auschwitz, which is of course bafflingly stupid. While the eventual hype package for Dom was altered to remove said footage for his actual entrance on the kickoff show, it was presented in full. This caught the attention of the Auschwitz Memorial Museum, who tweeted an understandably offended response, calling WWE shameless and stating that they don't believe it was simply an editing mistake on WWE's part. As of right now, WWE has not yet commented on the incident. More fallout from WrestleMania now, and the WWE star has unfortunately announced that they have been hospitalized following WrestleMania. And no, I'm not referring to Shane O'Mac. I am in fact referring to Chelsea Green, who made her WrestleMania debut on Sunday night, competing alongside Sonya Deville in the 4-way women's tag showcase match. You know, the one that was pretty much a 3-way until Ronda and Shayna just sort of came in and won. They just won. Anyway, Green, who has been delightfully extremely Karen since her WWE return, made the unfortunate announcement that following Mania, she's been struck by a stomach issue, which she would detail on Twitter in impressively Karen-like fashion. Green would write, "I thought I had celebrated my first Mania too hard. Turns out I actually had a severe stomach bug and a distended gallbladder. Thank God the manager of the ER took care of me. Will not be filing any complaints this weekend." While I'm sure Adam Pearce would be glad to see the back of Green, for now we would like to offer our well wishes to Green in her recovery from this issue. Well, that's it for the news portion. Now it's time to give Ollie Davis the grilling of his life. Get in here, Biscuit Boy. I have some questions for you about what you've been up to. What's that?
Yeah, hot tag. Let's do this. Yes.
No!
You two can go and watch the latest episode of WrestleTalk News by clicking on the video on the screen now. Go! It's wrestling news. It's exciting. Hot tag.
I need to find someone with a saw.
Yeah.
Who's got a saw? You in the corridor. Come here. Suck the poison out.
You can't cure it.
In this WrestleTalk news, WWE release is coming, Vince McMahon's net worth revealed, Jay White to AEW, and more.